All right, welcome back, Gulf Coast. Welcome back, America. Yes, you are in the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio, and so is Mike Zullo, former lead investigator of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office under the Obama fraud birth certificate investigation case. Mike Zullo, good to have you with us, folks. Go to carlgallups.com, click on the yellow link. You'll see it. You can see all of the video verification evidence and so much more there about what we're talking about. So, Mike, I'm going to hush. You bring us up on the Sheriff Arpaio case, what's going on, what the very latest is, and why this thing is probably getting ready to go really big.
Yeah, Carl, if your audience follows it or they remember, the government, the DOJ, brought criminal charges of contempt against Sheriff Arpaio approximately 2 weeks before the general election for his now seventh term was going to commence. Mm-hmm. That coupled with an influx of cash into his competitors' campaign by George Soros-affiliated groups mm-hmm. was enough to unseat the sheriff. The sheriff now is embattled, and he is obviously pleading not guilty to criminal contempt. And as fate would have it, he changed lawyers and got a new lawyer by the name of Mark Goldman. As Mr. Goldman was reviewing the case, he came to the conclusion that the DOJ has charged Sheriff Arpaio under an erroneous statute.
Yeah.
It would be U.S. Title 18-401. That carries a statute of limitations of up to 5 years. Mm-hmm. There's another congruent statute, 402, that 3 other defendants for the same criminal contempt charge in the same court were relieved of prosecution because a 1-year statute of limitations had expired. So let me put this together for you. The DOJ was well aware that the statute 402 they could not charge Arpaio under because the 1-year statute of limitations had lapsed.
It was gone, yeah.
They charged him under 401. Here is under 401. This could only be utilized if it was the United States or the government bringing the initial prosecution or action that resulted in that criminal contempt.
Right.
It can't be utilized. The fact of the matter is, what Arpaio was originally embattled over in the original civil proceeding was never being brought by the government. It was being brought by private parties, the ACLU and private law firms, not the federal government.
Right.
So the problem for the then administration was if they wanted to get Arpaio blown out of his seat as sheriff, they were going to charge him, which is something they never do before an election period. They needed a statute to charge him, and they could not use the correct statute. They ginned this up and used the wrong statute.
Hoping that nobody would know, or hoping that Hillary would go in and nobody would ever find out?
Well, hoping nobody would know, or even if they were found out, the damage would have been done.
Right.
Because the election would have been over before anybody figured it out. And he would have been out, and they would have said, oops, we're sorry, our bad, and we're going to all go home.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the way it's unfolding. So as it stands right now, there is an emergency motion before the Ninth Circuit asking that this case be dismissed for that and other areas that need to be looked at. Mm-hmm. And in a very strange move, the Ninth Circuit has now set forth an order, and it is instructing the DOJ and the judge who is presiding over this at this point, they need to answer within 14 days the questions that have been raised in this emergency motion for dismissal.
And that's huge.
That's huge.
Because now we got
basically what they're saying is you better explain to us how you did this.
Right. And now we've got a new DOJ, a new president, and I just know Jeff Sessions is not going to try to cover up the unethical / illegal activities of the prior administration. He's not going to do it.
No, this is all ginned up. And to make matters worse, the original proceeding that this is all stemmed from is already in appeal before the Ninth Circuit for numerous violations by that presiding judge.
Right.
So here's kind of like a situation where if the original thing gets overturned at a later date, but Arpaio was still ginned up under this complaint, and stands trial and is found guilty, but the original case gets dismissed, well, then in theory, this contempt trial would never have occurred because the whole original matter has been vacated.
Right.
It would be like it never happened.
Right. Right.
It is such a spider web of technicalities and intricacies that it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And one more point.
Go ahead.
This has cost the taxpayer of Maricopa County $50 million. And everybody wants to blame Arpaio. It's not Arpaio.
Right.
It's the judge involved in this that allows this to go forward. $50 million the taxpayer not only pays for the defense of Arpaio, but they also pay for the prosecution of Arpaio.
Right.
Out of the same checkbook.
Right. And Mike, listen, we've got 30 seconds, and I'm just going to say this. And now we know, because it came up in trial, that a lot of it was about the birth certificate. And Arpaio has said that. He's been on record saying that, and he believes that because it was brought up. The birth certificate was brought up. That wasn't even apropos to the case. Dennis Montgomery was brought up and outed by the court, and that wasn't even apropos to the case. So this is a stinking mess. I have a feeling we're going to hear a lot more about all of this in the weeks and months to come. What do you think, Mike?
Oh, I think so. I mean, this was just political retribution and politicizing the DOJ to do it.
Yep, absolutely. All about the birth certificate. Folks, we'll be back after this time out. Don't go anywhere.